Good afternoon. Today is April 20th, 2020, and today our lesson is we will be able to relate decimals to fractions, naming tenths and hundredths by completing past places lessons and activity sheets. So this is nothing new. We have gone over decimals and fractions, and we've talked about where the tenths place is and where the hundredths place is. So we're just going to go over, here is a fraction, 3/10. Or I could say 3 out of 10. As a decimal, we have a 0 here because there is no whole number. This is our ones place. And we have our tenths place right here. So we have 3/10. The same way that I say it as a fraction is the same way that I would say it as a decimal. We can also look at it as a pictorial model. So here my whole is divided into 10 equal parts. And I have 3 out of those 10 shaded. So the same way, 3/10, 3/10, and 3/10. We can also see it on a number line. And we also do the same thing with our hundreds. We have 35 out of 100, so I would say 35 hundredths. Here, there are no whole numbers, and we have 35 hundredths, so I say the same thing as a decimal. And here my whole is divided into 100 equal parts, and 35 are shaded. So I say it the same way, but it's represented here 4 different ways: as a fraction, as a decimal, as a pictorial model, or using like place value or base 10 blocks, and a number line. So remember that a decimal is the numbers following a decimal point showing the tenths, hundredths, and the thousands, etc. It can keep going on and on. So a tenth means that it's 1 part in 10 equal parts. So this is how you represent it as a fraction, as a decimal. And then hundredths, 1 part in 100 parts. And when we have our hundredths, that means it's just 1 part out of 100. And here's how you would represent it as a decimal. 0 point, you could say it as point, or you could say 0 and 100. So here it is again, just how you would write it different ways. Here's our decimal point here in the middle. Our whole numbers, we say that together, 17. We say the decimal as and then 591 thousandths. Now, we don't necessarily go up to the thousandths very often in 4th grade, but it's a good thing to know it. So let's look here at some different ways that we can go from a fraction or a mixed number to a decimal. So here I have a place value chart, and I only went up to the hundredths place here, and to the hundredths place over here. To the right of the decimal means that it's small, it's part of a whole. So tenths or hundredths, and to the left, it means it's my whole number. So now when I look at this number, 57 is my whole number because it's not over any number. There's no denominator here. It's just my whole number. So I'm going to put my 57 here. There's 5 and 7. Now when I look at this, I have 49 out of 100. So here's my hundredths place. I'm going to put my 4 and my 9. So how I would write 57 and 49 hundredths here as a fraction, this is how I write it as a decimal. 57 and 49 hundredths. Same thing if I wanted to write my second number here, 2 and 5/10. Well, I have a whole number, so I'm going to put that here. I don't need to put this 2 because it's just a 2 in the tens or the hundreds place. It's just a 2. And I have 5/10. So in my tenths place, I'm going to put a 5. I don't have any hundreds, so I'm not going to put anything there. Well, let's just say I just had 0 and I just had 7 hundredths. If I just had 7 hundredths, well, I'm going to go and look here. Do I have a whole number? No, I don't have a whole number, so I'm just going to put a 0 there. Do I have any tenths? No, I do not. I just have 7 hundredths. So this is how I would write 700 as a decimal. So now if I had a decimal number, how could I write it as a fraction? We need to be able to go backwards and forwards from a fraction to a decimal or a decimal to a fraction. But when I look at this here, I can label my place value. So here I have one whole because anything to the left of the decimal is a whole number. So I'm going to put this as 1. My ones place. Sorry, it was a little off. And I'm going to put my decimal. And now this first place right here next to the decimal is the tenths place. And the place next to that is my hundredths place. So I'm labeling my place value. Ones, decimal, tenths, and hundredths. So now when I write this as a fraction, I'm going to say I have 5 as my whole number. So here is my 5. And now I have 14 hundredths. 14 hundredths. Now I know that you are not going to be able to write this. You're going to have to type this in. So how I would type this in as a decimal, as a fraction, I would just put 5. I'm going to put a couple of spaces so that I know that this is a whole number, that it's not connected with my fraction part. And then I have 14. And then I'm going to put this backslash, this forward slash here over 100. So just give a little bit of space in between. You don't have to put a decimal point here because we're writing it as a fraction. So I just put a 5 and gave a little bit of space and then put my fraction. So that I know that this is 5 and 14 hundredths. So I will do the same thing here with my next one. When I'm looking here, well, I don't have anything in my ones place, so I'm going to put a 0. I'm going to label my place value. That's ones, tenths, and hundredths. So when I look at this, all right, there's nothing there. There's no whole number, so I don't need to put a whole number. And then I have 25 hundredths. So I would just write this as a fraction. I would just put 25 hundredths. Same thing here. I want to label my place value. It will help. I'm going to put, this is my ones, tens, decimal, and then tenths. I put my fancy T to help me remember that that is a decimal. And then when I write this, I'll type it, excuse me, I'm going to put 12, a couple of spaces, and 5 tenths. Moving on, we can also have a fraction or a decimal represented as a pictorial model. So when I look at this, first thing I notice, well, I have two wholes. Well, this whole right here, both of them are divided into tenths, and this one is shaded all the way in. So I know that this one here would represent one whole. Well, when I look right here, I don't have that many. I have 1 out of 10. So this, if I wrote that as a fraction, this would be 1/10. I would say that this is 1 and 1/10. Well, this is as a fraction. Let's write it as a decimal. I have 1 whole and I have 1/10. So this is how I would write this as a fraction, and I would write it as a decimal. And when I look here at this next one here, I have my wholes. It is divided into 100 equal pieces. So I have one of these wholes shaded, one whole shaded, and I have 1 out of 100 shaded. So this would be 100. Well, how do I write this as a decimal? I have 1, and do I have anything in the tenths place? I don't. So I put my 0, and I have 1/10. So that 100. So that 1 would go in the hundredths place. When I look right here, I have tenths. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 tenths. 6 tenths, I could write that as 6 tenths. Or I could write it as a fraction, 6 tenths. And I have, well, here my whole was divided into 100. I have this 10, 11, 12, 13. So I have 13 hundredths. And if I combine both of those together, because here I have a plus sign, I would go ahead and put 6 plus 10. I'm going to move this out to show you already. And this is 6 tenths plus 13 hundredths equals to 73 hundredths. I just wanted to quickly show you also how when we are going into our lesson, some of you were struggling with how to type in. If you click on the line, I have put in a text box for you. You can go right here and you can type in your answer choice. You can type in your answer. If you cannot type and this text box does not come up, come right here to this T. It says text box. You click text box, and then wherever you need to put your text box, you can put it right on in there. When you get finished, then you're going to go ahead and submit your answers. If you have any more questions, please let me know. If you need to make sure that you are also going into your Pathblazers lessons. I can tell when you've gone in and when you have not.